Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about the film Homebound, which was produced in South Korea in 1967. It talks about a woman who was married to an army man who was disabled during the Korean War, which lasted between 1950 and 1953. And he was very much in sorrow for his situation, and he was a novelist, and he wrote for a newspaper where his wife also worked. And his wife was very nice to him. She took a good care of him, and she didn't complain of anything, even though in addition to his disability, he also had a difficult temper because of his sorrow. But she was a very good woman. However, she was tempted by another guy she happened to meet. They had an affair, and her husband, at first, he pretended he didn't know that, because he was extremely thankful that his wife got to take care of him for years in such faithful way. And then after a while, that man, her lover, he asked her to leave the city, to stay with him, to live with him, but she refused. She sent her lover away, and she preferred to stay with her husband. So in the end, it prevailed. Her love for her husband, her sense of duty, and her decency. It's a kind of ending that is controversial, because some people might think that she had the right to stay with her lover, that she was good with her husband for years, and that she deserved to be happy with someone else. Other people will agree that she belonged to her husband. And it's interesting to see that even though her husband was very much in sorrow for his situation, he also, at some point, he cared about his wife, that it was very tiresome to her to work out of home, to take care of him, that it was a sacrifice to her. Time passed. They didn't have any children. She was making lots of sacrifices for him, and he acknowledged that, even though he had many problems. And he had one of the few professions he could have at the time as a writer, and he tried to work to earn a living, but the one who really had a steady salary and indeed supported the household was his wife. So, in addition to take care of him, she was also the breadwinner of the house. And she never complained. Okay, he was a novelist, he wrote for the newspaper, but sometimes his novels weren't accepted, and it created even more stress on the guy. And it's also interesting that this film shows things from the point of view of the woman. In old films of this era, we would often see things under the point of view of the man. For example, a man taking care of a sick wife, and then he fell in love with another woman. But then we can see the thoughts and how the woman reacted to all the problems around her, and that she had a strong sense of duty, and she also really loved her husband. She wanted to help him more emotionally. She even told him that he shouldn't live in the past, that he should think about tomorrow, that she was his wife, that she was happy with him, that they should think only about that. But he remained very troubled emotionally, not only because of the sacrifices of the woman or the situation itself. It also hurt his pride as a man, We must remember that decades ago the world was more chauvinistic. So to a man being totally dependent on his wife, there was some sense of humiliation on him too. And it's a nice film. We can see a little bit of the culture of Korea, because World War II and Korean War, indeed, there were many people who died, many people who were left with disabilities. So the plot has something to do with the real life. We can see some landscapes of Korea in the 1960s, the buildings, people walking down the street, workplaces, offices, and it's nice to see how things evolved until today. And there is always this sense of drama that I must do the right thing, I must be a good person, it doesn't matter if my life is affected. And the sense of duty of the woman, we can see it throughout the film. So it's very nice to see that even though she worked out of home, she took care of her husband, but somehow she also retained more old-fashioned values. Sure, she loved her husband, but she also felt that she should stay with him because she was his wife. You must take that into consideration too. And she sacrificed herself once more without complaining. She realized that she shouldn't leave home. It would create lots of problems. She would never be happy this way. It would always cast a shadow under her happiness. And it's really nice to see the modern values versus traditional values. Even though on the surface she was such an independent woman. But it was a film made many decades ago, so we can see the contrast between old and new. But she got to fall in love with a man, so she had this courage to let herself be happy with someone else in a way, even though she didn't keep this love for too long. And this is a modern value. And then we can see that in the newspaper, her boss, when he analyzed the novel of her husband, he said that the readers wouldn't be interested in a story of a woman who married a crippled man because she was healthy. She wouldn't do that. But actually, the novelist, he wrote the history of his life. He wrote the history of his wife. So she was looking at her boss and thinking, my goodness, I did that. It's my life. How come you to say that it doesn't exist? It's not honest love. So there are many details and many comparisons in this film that are very nice to make, and I'm sure that if you are a fan of current day K-dramas, Korean culture, you will love to know this film. That's all for now, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you!